Hey guys, Stealth here. Got something special. I got preview access to the Israel DLC. Yes, it's preview access. That means that it's not accessible to the regular public yet. It also means that some of the units are still going to get rebalanced. But for now, at least I can create a deck, and there are some other YouTubers and streamers that I can play against, which I'll probably be doing over the next few days. Anyway, let's have a look at the units, and especially their availability is something that I'm really interested in. First of all, they started with 60 activation points, which is an interesting amount. It is, of course, a standalone nation, so they have to be able to fill a deck, and with 60 points you should be able to do that. Logistics. First of all, let me say that I'm probably not going to be able to pronounce these things the right way, so just bear with me on that one. They got the Hapak Command Infantry, a couple of different transports, a 5-point truck, BTR 152, apparently captured. The Bardelas, which I think is an M113. Then they have the Zelda. Seems to be more heavily and as well armored as armed transport. Again, all 5 points, except for the BTR. And they got the Nachmechon, I think. Very heavily armored IFV. Well, is it an IFV? I think you should call it an APC. An APC with 8 frontal armor and 2 machine guns. I mean, that thing looks impressive. Then another transport called the Achsarit. Not anything... Well, I was going to say not anything too interesting, but this thing has 10 frontal armor. If they get their regular infantry in a transport like that, then this is going to be interesting. Also, the Merc 2A. 18 frontal armor, 6 side armor, a 65% 15 power armor penetration gun, 9 rounds minute rate of fire, 19 or Mark 19 grenade launcher. Quite fast. Big target, poor optics. Well, it's a tank, what do you expect? And finally the Anafa as their helicopter transport. I think we're going to be seeing these transports quite a few times. Then the Peacoat, which I think is the command version of this truck. They also have the BTR 40 Peacoat, which apparently is the BTR version. Although... no, the 152 is a different design. Command vehicle Mugaf. Achsarit Peacoat, which is another very heavily armored transport or command vehicle. I mean, look at this thing. 10 frontal armor, 6 side, 5 back, 2 top. For 130 points. I think that other nations are going to be really, really jealous, especially considering that you can mount 4 of these things in your deck. This is going to be very hard to take down with an artillery strike or a bombing run. You're going to have to bring in some heavy ordnance. Also, a Merc 1 Peacoat command tank, 16 frontal armor. Again, quite a punchy gun, although this one has a bit less armor penetration and a bit less armor. Moving on, the Sofyan Peacoats. This one is just a regular, I think, Bell 204 helicopter, command helo. Otherwise, logistics, the Rio, I think this is the same truck that the US are using. The Oshkosh, which is again the Hemet from the US deck. And they have the Yasur, which I believe is a CH-53. Very, very fast resupply chopper. 35 points, which actually makes it quite interesting. 10 strength, but of course it's the size of a small house. At very big, it's going to be quite easy to hit. Infantry. Now, I'm not going to cover these transports again, but I'm going to look at the transport combinations with the infantry. So we got the Bardelas again. The infantry, by the way, I'm looking at is the Barkan, which is the infantry stinger, so AA infantry. Again, you can bring these in... oh, sorry, this is a different unit. These don't have particularly tough transports. Apparently they don't value their AA infantry as highly as they do their command infantry. The Bazak is the worst version of it, armed with the red eye. Again, the same choices of transportation. The Dorban LR, 7 or 4, ATGM infantry. 2625 meter range, extremely accurate. Armor penetration could be better, And of course they are a regular train squad at 15 kilometers per hour. Make sure you transport these guys in a vehicle, or you're going to be waiting for them a long time. Availability at 7 and 4 is good. And again, they have the same transport options that we've seen for the other infantry. Then the Gav Nuni. This is a dragon team, armed with the standard dragon, 10 armor penetration, good against transports, not much else. They can, however, hit ground targets at a good range. Better range than what you might be expecting from the Storm Engineers and other fire support squads. Their transport options are a bit better. They can come in that, I'm just going to call it an infantry tank, because, well, that's basically what it looks like. They also got the Achsarit, which is this very, very heavily armored transport of 10 points of armor. This thing is going to be interesting in armored, or in urban territory. Quite heavily armored, quite heavily armed. It does carry a lot of rounds. It's not particularly fast off-road, although 60 is quite good for a mechanized vehicle. And, well, I think that these things should be a bit more expensive. I mean, 15 points for a transport that has about 3 times the armor of a regular transport. Sometimes even up to 10 times, considering that the 113 is, I think, 10 points. This thing should not be 15. I'd say it should be about 20 to 25. Also, the Merc 2A, which I already covered. This is basically buying infantry, or basically buying a tank and happening to get infantry with it. And the Bell 205 Alpha is nothing special, just a chopper. Then we got the Givati, which come in hammer transports, also known as Humvees. Again, the Bardelas, the Zelda, and the Anafa. This is the shock infantry. Notable 15-man squad. RPG 7V, which is something that you only find in Red 4 infantry, up till now. Galil assault rifle, quite accurate. And they got the Galil ARM, a saw, quite accurate, high rate of fire. Suppression looks good. And they carry a lot of rounds for these. I think that this is going to be quite difficult to beat infantry. Next up is the Messiaat, or Messiaat. Grenade launcher infantry. Interesting. Blue didn't have that yet. Only the infantry that had this was the AGS infantry from, I believe, the Czech deck. Again, the transport options are quite diverse. You can again go with the Merc 2A, the Nachmetshon, the Achsarit. A lot of these transports are limited in availability in cards. You can only get 3 for the Achsarit, same for the Nachmetshon. Merc 2A only has 2 cards. The Anafa has a helicopter, so it's not that special. Then, the Miluim, which is the reserve infantry, just the militia. They're armed with, I believe, the same weapon as the French infantry, the RL 100 Blindicide. Nothing really too special about these things. The only thing I find interesting is this half-truck that they're coming in, the Zahlam. Nothing really too special about that thing either. Rovait, standard line infantry. I don't think it's that special, actually. I don't see any particularly special stats for this one. They also have an upgraded variant though, which is the Rovait 90. These guys carry the M72A4, so better armor penetration, better accuracy, same range. They have the FN Mag, which has even worse accuracy of 20% versus 30. Suppression, 55, is the same. The range is better. Oh, this is going to be a tough trade-off. Their assault rifle, I'd say that, well, it equals each other out a bit. The accuracy is a bit better when compared to the F-16. The M16. Suppression is better for the fall because it fires 762 instead of 556 rounds. Rate of fire is in the advantage of the M16. I'm gonna leave it to the stat analyzers to see which one's better because I don't really see it, actually. Moving on. Shayatet 13. Very potent infantry. Elite troops. Very good RPG or law. 83mm rockets. I think that these guys are basically carrying a Maw, although it is their version of it. They got the AKM and the PKM, so it seems that they're using quite a bit of captured weaponry. Very, very accurate on the assault rifle, or yeah, it's an assault rifle. Quite a high rate of fire. Look at the rate of fire of the AKM compared to these guys. 160 rounds a minute versus 355. And they do fire with the 7.62, whereas these guys use the 5.56, so far more impact. I believe that the only troops that have this 60% are elite level, and then even then not all of them have it. Transport options. A transport truck standard, a Hammer Humvee, or a Hammer, I'm not sure how I'm pronouncing that. An Alpha Hilo, and they got this thing. Keep an eye on the skies if you want to go against these guys, because they're nasty. This is the Yas-ur Nimrod. 2975 meter range ATGM. That's the best ATGM range that I've seen in the game. For now, that is, because they also have this ATGM on other units. Range is fantastic. Accuracy is really, really good. Armor penetration of 28. It's extremely fast, and if these guys do a land grab, then you know that they're going to be investing a lot of points, because those helos are not cheap at 80 points. So if you do see these guys, and you're playing, for example, a lower point tactical game, then they cannot have a lot of other units. Keep that in mind. Next unit is the Hannam Infantry with an Uzi, an RPG-7 and an FN Mag. Shock troops. And again, they have these in the 95 variant as well with the Kaffir 15. That's a massive upgrade in accuracy. The B300, which is a very, very nice upgrade to their anti-tank weapon. 875 versus 700, 70% versus 40, 21 versus 17, same round a minute rate of fire. And they both carry the FN Mag. As for their transports, it seems to be a bit more limited to the base version. These guys seem to have, I'd say, better transports, such as the Hammer and the Anafa. Supports. The BTR 152 TCM. I'd say that this would be a perfect weapon to prevent helo rushes. And having been helo rushed, if I am going to use the Israeli deck in ranked, then this is something that a helo rush will run into. Quite a good range. Rate of fire is pretty decent. 1 HE. They're only 25 points and you can get a lot of those in your deck. The Hovet. Radar guided Vulcan, basically. And they also got the Machbet, which is the same weapon. Bit more accurate. 55 versus 45. Better range. 2800 and 2625 versus 2625 and 2450. And they carry the 8 Stingers. You gotta be really close with these Stingers to hit a helicopter. I would prefer to use the Vulcan, but then again, this thing will be vulnerable to seed. Availability for these are 9 and 7 or 7 and 4. Then we have the Drakon, which is basically the Chaparral. And mortar carrier, the Laish, I think, and the Makmat. 160mm mortar. Yeah, that's going to leave a dent. And then some. I mean, 6 HE on a mortar, but you're paying 50 points for it. If I'm correct, then the only other mortar system that you're paying 50 points for are those dual barrel mortars from, which is the Scandinavians, I think the Swedish. And they only carry 42 rounds. Availability 7 or 4, so pick wisely if you want to have these things in your deck. And we're coming up to rocket artillery. The Mar-24D, also known as what is previously the M4 Sherman with napalm rockets. 12 kilometer range, dispersion 4.5 clicks. Nothing too special about this thing, I'd say. The Mar-290, look at the difference in caliber. This is 240mm. This is 290mm. This thing does 1 HE. This thing does 15 HE. If this thing hits your infantry, then you better have them in cover, or they're not going to be there anymore. decent on the armor as well. 3, 2, 2 and none. Maneuverability off-road is really, really bad at 45. And I think that... I was thinking it might be a Centurion chassis for that, but I'm not exactly sure. The LAR 160 Cluster MLRS. Again, quite expensive at 100 points. Not very high on availability, although you do get 2 cards, so you could go with 6 and create a nice amount of rocket artillery. And that's something that I am a bit worried about. That this deck is going to be the new rocket artillery spam for 10v10s. I mean, if you pick all of the rocket artillery, and this is not even a support deck, I now have 17 units of rocket artillery. That's a lot. The range isn't fantastic, provided that. I mean, 12.5 clicks is only going to get you so far. You need to be quite close to the front line. MAR 290, you have to be 25 clicks, which is pretty decent in most maps. And this thing is again 15 clicks, so you have to be a bit closer. Still, a lot of rocket artillery. And we're not done with the artillery. We got the Rochef, which is 21,000. I think it's an M109. Not exactly sure which variant, but the dispersion is not really good. 6,370 meters. The Doher is far, far better. Basically, I think this is an M109A6. 130 points. It is a prototype unit. Accuracy is good. Rate of fire is quite good at 5 rounds a minute. Range is very, very good at 41 kilometers. HE of 7 means that you can pretty reliably snipe low armored targets. Then, in case you need something positively dead, you can go for the Romach, which is again very good on the range, almost 50 clicks out. 175mm round, dispersion 5 clicks. Well, basically, if your shell lands anywhere near, it's going to be dead anyway. HE of 9, 2 rounds a minute, rate of fire. And then we have the Cardom, which is less in range, higher in HE, dispersion is less. So this is basically your more sniper variant of 203mm. To finish it off, we also have the Chenav, which is basically their version of the Hawk. Stats seem pretty similar. Be wary though that the Chenav 2 has quite long range against helos, 3,325. Not an ATGM target. And then we have the Cholev. 155mm howitzer, 35,000 meter range or 35 clicks, 7 HE, 4 rounds a minute rate of fire. But look on the armor on this thing. 12 points of frontal armor. If you do take this thing and you want to drive it for some reason away from your fob, make sure you bring an additional supply unit because its autonomy of 270 is really, really bad. Tank section. This is the Magach 6. M60, I'd say. I'm really, really not well versed in the Israeli units, so I'm probably pronouncing them wrong and potentially misidentifying the units that they're based on. 1982 build, 12 frontal armor, 10 rounds a minute rate of fire. I'd say that these things make nice support tanks or tanks that you can use on your flanks where you don't hope to see a lot of heavy action. The Bet Gal version of it is punchier. It has a 60% accuracy on the gun, 17 points of armor penetration. And then we have the 100-point Magach 7C Gimel. 17 frontal armor, 17 points of armor penetration, and slightly more accurate than the 6th version. Otherwise, the stats are virtually all the same. It's just that frontal armor and the accuracy. Then we come up against the Merc of a line. 65 points for the Merc of a 1. Availability of 13 and 9. Quite heavily armored for 65 points at 16 frontal armor. Off-road speed at 50 is not fantastic, but rate of fire is quite good. 9 rounds a minute. There are not too many tanks who can do that. Very, very accurate, although the range is only 2100. Merc of a 2B, basically the same thing that they're using for the transport. The 3B, this could be a really nasty surprise if you come up against it with infantry, because it is sporting a grenade launcher. It's also sporting a very punchy gun, although for, I suppose you could call it a super heavy, it's only packing a 20 points of armor penetration gun. So a 20 AP gun, it is very well armored, has a very nice rate of fire, but I think that you should be using this thing to pick off weaker targets. And then we have the flagship, the Merkava 3D Baz. Now this thing has been changed slightly since you may have last seen it on the stream. You only get 1 card, 2 trained or 1 veteran, 22 points of frontal armor, quite good off-road but not as fast as most of the other super heavies. Punchy gun, 23, very accurate. It also carries the Lahat. ATGM at 2800 meters. I believe it's currently one of the few tanks on blue that has a high-end ATGM, if not the only one. 22 points of arm penetration, and again, very, very accurate, although this one you may be wanting to sit still for. PT-76B that they captured. It is amphibious, although slow. Beware of that. Off-road is not particularly good either. And then we have the Shotkal. I think a Centurion build. You can still see it has these low off-road speeds of 50. And the other version, the Dalet, is not that much better. Recon. The Bedouins. Interesting selection of weapons, I must say. They carry the M14, which is a sniper rifle. Range 1000 meters. 15 rounds a minute rate of fire, and they carry 50. So if you use these in an infantry warfare, then they're going to be quickly picking off infantry. Be wary of these boys, because they have very good stealth, they're very good in spotting stuff, they're not the fastest, but they can be spammed. You can get 18 of these if you really want to. As for their transports, the only notable unit is the Ram Recce. This vehicle is interesting because it is the only transport that also doubles as a recon vehicle itself. Really fast, whoops, let me get the stats. Really fast, 95 kph off-road, good autonomy, 150 kph road speed. Browning looks good, 1000 meter range. It's basically a cheap spotting truck. But it comes with infantry, so for 30 points you're not getting 1 recon unit, you're getting 2. The HVMS. Very punchy recon unit, 60% accuracy, does not come with a stabilizer. Be wary of that. And sniff at this thing or sneeze at this thing and it's going to fall apart. 2 frontal armor. Use it as a support gun. Or turn the gun off and only turn it back on when you have something you can positively kill. The M325 Patrol is basically a very heavily armed jeep, or yeah, I think it's basically a jeep. 2 7.62 and a 50 cal. Sorry, another 12.7 millimeter and nothing really too special. It is small, medium stealth, very good optics and fast. 30 points for very good optics. I think it's a good deal. Then we have the Maglan. This is the first infantry, recon infantry, with an ATGM. The Spike MR. 65% accuracy, 2450 meter range. And, okay, I should be correcting that. The Cavalry Scouts also have an ATGM, but it's nowhere near this good. And the ATGM that they carry does not have the penetration, nor the range, nor the accuracy. So this is a far better weapon. They are expensive though. This is a 40-point infantry unit, plus whatever you pay for the transport. You don't get that many. You do get 1 or 4 per cart, so you can get 8, but you're going to have to go with 2 different transports. Weaponry, very, very good. The Negev, which can also be used in CQC. And they got the Guillon. The Glilon, the assault rifle. 60% accuracy, really, really good weapon overall. And they can come in that very lethal ATGM-wielding helicopter, making this one of the most expensive infantry recon units in the game. Because I think that the most expensive we had so far was the Spetsnaz Gru in the Mi-24D for 80 points. So this is 120 points. People will be fielding this, and with the units being as good as they are, I think you can even get the same amount of points with it as well. Ram AT, recon vehicle, fast, it's the same transport or same base as the Ram Recce that we saw here. This one's armed with an AT weapon though. It's just a recoilless rifle. It does have a heat round, so it will always do some damage. Rounds a minute rate of fire is only 7. Armor penetration is what you expect from the M40. It's not fantastic. And then you got the Ram TCM. The TCM is a weapon that we've seen on one of the support units. That one. It is that AA gun, or that twin autocannon, that can go for either aerial targets or ground targets. And basically, for 50 points, you have a very good recon unit, as well as let's say a half-decent AA unit. Sofyan, basically a Bell recon unit, nothing too special about these stats. And the Tyran 5 Blazer. Quite good at blazing, 60 kph off-road, good optics, medium stealth. It's a decent tank. I think it's based off the T55. 40% accuracy, don't fire it on the move if you intend to hit your target. Armor penetration is quite alright. Vehicles. Now we come into the interesting HEGM section. The Japaz Orev TOW, just the standard TOW variant. 15 points of armor penetration, 50% accurate. The Hammer Drev, Orev, the ITO, slightly better weapon, slightly better transport, I'd say, but no, transports are basically the same in stats. And then we got the Hammer Maypats. Carries the Maypats HEGM, better than the TOW, I believe, or at least very, very similar in stats, but 2800 meter range. The HEGMs are really, really good at their range. I mean, the other Western forces only get a range of 26-25. So that makes the Maypats quite a bit more survivable than the other units. We got the Giraffe TOW, which is basically a tow truck, not in the sense that you tow other vehicles with it, but that other vehicles might be needing a tow truck once you're done with them. Their weapon isn't that good. 15 points of AP, and same for the ITO. It's nothing really special. Moving up. If we had the Wally for the Dutch, then we're going to need a new name for this one. To me, it personally reminds me of the Spark from XCOM. So that's probably going to be my name for it, the Spark. And Spark it will. Not just spark of enemy vehicles going up in flames, but also quite a bit of controversy, as its range is fantastic. 2975, 50% accuracy, and that's without any bonuses that you use here. AP power, 27. Reload time is quite good. The vehicle itself is not bad. Its autonomy is workable at 480. Armor is not that good, and speed of 65 is okay. We also got the Perret, which is more heavily armed, as well as more heavily armored. Its armament is the same, although it carries twice the amount of missiles, 24 versus 12. And then we got the M51 Sherman, or I Sherman. Nothing really too special about this. It's a 15-point support vehicle. What do they class it as? Tank destroyer. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but maybe back in 1982 it was decent as a tank destroyer. 9 points of AP, no stabilizer, 45% accuracy. That's a decent gun for 15 points. Helos. We have the Lahatut TOW. Again, tow missile armed MD500. Nothing really too special there. The Maypats fires it's the same helicopter, the MD500. This one fires the Lahat. Great range, better armor penetration, a lot better. Accuracy is also better, and it has quite a good stabilizer at 55%. Then, as if we didn't have enough Apaches in the game yet, we got the Payton, or the Payton, I'm not sure. Apache, armed with Hellfires. It is not another longbow. It does have medium optics, and it carries 16 semi-active Hellfires, which means if you shoot down the helo, your tanks or other vehicles are no longer at risk. The Tseza, or Tsefa B, is basically your standard AH-1, just rocket pods and a Vulcan. And we got rocket pods, a Vulcan, and a Stinger. This thing carries 4 Stinger missiles, doing 5 HE. It will still not be that effective, as most Red 4 helos have, if they have AA missiles, a range of 2600. Depends a bit on the type of AA missile that they got. But overall, pretty damn nice helicopter, I'd say. Availability is 1. It is a prototype unit. Or actually 4 and 3, but it's just 1 card. Air tab, the Ayit. Looks like a seed aircraft. Carries the Shrike. Nothing too stellar about it, except for the fact that it is really bloody slow at 600. If you see one of these things come in, just send out a fighter and it'll probably take it down. Kurnaus 2000. The improved version. Not the same airframe. This one has a better range. It carries the AGM-78 Delta. Longer range. Reminds me of the missile that is also carried by the Prowler. It also carries 4 AIM-7F Sparrows. Long range anti-airplane. Maneuverability, quite good. 400. So this thing can be a double threat. It can both kill aircraft, although I wouldn't use it as your primary fighter, and it can do seed missions. The Baz, the F-15. AIM-9Js, 4 of those, 4 AIM-7 Sparrows. Nothing really too special about this one. Then they got the Meshupar, Vulcan, the Python 4. Very good accuracy on the short-range missile, all fire and forget missiles. Long range is 7000 with 70% accuracy. ECM, 40%. This is not a super fighter, not one of those things that has 50% ECM. It will be able to take or to get shot down. The Kurnas, which is armed with electro-optical missiles, fire and forget. Does 20 points of HE, has 0 dispersion. I'd say it's basically a laser-guided bomb as far as specs go. It doesn't say it's laser-guided, but it is fire and forget. And that means that it's probably going to be not so much... Well, it's not laser-guided then. Otherwise the aircraft would still have to be in the area until the bomb hits. I wonder how accurate this thing is going to be. Also carries AIM-7Es. The Ra'am is an F-15 armed with the Mark 82 Griffin. You can see them mounted here under the airframe. 3,500 meter range, 0 dispersion, so again, very, very accurate bombs. Also carries the AIM-9S, 55% accuracy, really, really deadly. This one, interestingly, does have 50% ECM. So I'd say that this one is, well, it's not really a fighter, but it's a bomber that's going to be quite hard to shoot down. You're going to have to throw a lot of missiles at it before you're going to get a couple of hits in and kill this thing off. The Lavi, or the Lavi, Mark 83 bombs. It carries the DEFA 550 and the Python 3. I believe that they had more bombs on this in the stream. I'm not exactly sure. I think they had more. I think they had 15 bombs or something. They reduced that to 10, if they reduced it at all. 40% ECM, very good at speeding, 1000 kph as all aircraft do. This is gonna hurt if it hits. Try and shoot this thing down before it gets there. And come to think of it, is this a Rafale? A Rafale turned into a bomb truck? I think so. Then, next aircraft, an F-16. They call it the Nets. It carries 6 450 kilogram Tol 2 cluster bombs, 7 AP. It's going to hurt when these things rain down on your tanks or other vehicles. The Barak, fire and forget version of the Maverick. Really nice at killing tanks. ECM 30%. Keep that in mind. And the Barak 2 is a fighter. It's an F-16 with 50% ECM. I believe that's the only F-16 in the game that has that. Python 4 missiles carries the Derby missiles. Why is this thing any more expensive? The Meshupar can keep over the target for longer, but doesn't turn as fast. And it has twice the weaponry that the Barak 2 has. This one carries 4 fire and forgets of all categories, and this one only carries 2. Basically, this is, I suppose you could call it your cheaper variant, or your cheaper solution to the expensive Meshupar. Then we got the Shahak. Carries short-range AA missiles. Seems to be a bit of a remnant. 1962. The Mashar A carries rocket pods. I expect these things to start turning up in tactical games very, very soon. The Kaffir C7 carries napalm, and quite a bit of it. And finally we have this one. The Kaffir C7. Yeah, that's going to be a bit of a explosive warhead. 23 points of HE. We're starting to approach the amount of destruction that a B5 can do. Except that this thing is not as heavily armored or as survivable as the B5. It does have 20% ECM, it's not very fast at 900. Availability is only 1. It's not a prototype. You can get 2 units or 1 at Elite. As for the Naval tab, basically all the units that we've seen will be coming back here. The only thing I'm really interested in is if they have a tank. And no, they don't. They can bring the Sha'ot Kaldalet and nothing else. What I can also show you is what kind of specializations they get, or at least for now. They get motorized, armored, support, marines, mechanized, and airborne. So we got all the categories. I believe I'm not missing any of them. Am I? Let's have a look. It's been so long since I created a deck. No, all has the same categories. Of course, that will impact a lot of the veterancy, and the veterancy will give you a lot of bonuses. So keep that in mind. Anyway, that is it for now with the Israeli. Again, they are not out yet. That'll be October 4th. This is a preview, so stats can still change. I can play it, and I'll be probably streaming this thing tomorrow to give you guys a bit of an overview of what you can expect. Unfortunately, I cannot play against any of you. Only people who have the DLC preview, and there's not too many of those, can play. So I'm either going to have to go up against one of those, or do it against the AI. Of course, the AI won't be as much of a match, but at least we can test out some of those units. So, that was a bit of an overrun of the Israeli deck. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'm looking forward to seeing your input, and let's see what these units are really going to be like once we put them to the test under fire. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you soon for more videos.